Week 12 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 12 defense DST units. I'm ranking this week number 1, the Baltimore Ravens. So this week, a great matchup versus the New York Jets. Tyrod Taylor in their quarterback. Justin Fields, he just couldn't get the job done for this New York Jet team. And down Garrett Wilson once again this week with 2 young receivers in John Mechie and Donnie Mitchell, who they traded for a couple weeks ago. I don't see him doing much, and Breece Hall really hasn't done much. If Baltimore gets off to an early start and make Tyrod Taylor and the Jet team one-dimensional, they're going to tee off and have a good game this week. Number 2, the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawk unit, one of the better DSTs in the season, and they get to the quarterback. They create turnovers. We saw a couple weeks ago versus the Cardinals, 2 fumble recovery touchdowns by DeMarcus Lawrence. And this week, a good matchup at the Tennessee Titans, where they got nothing going offensively. Calvin Ridley out for the season, breaking the fibula in last week's ball game. So this week, I think Seattle, after a tough loss and a close one at the Rams last week, going to Tennessee, defense goes in there and has a big game. Number 3, the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns this week, they're a great option for the Vegas Raiders. We saw the Dallas Cowboys create pressure all game long in last week's game, where they're one of the worst defenses in the league is Dallas. And this week, Cleveland with Myles Garrett leading the way. The best pass rusher, obviously, in all pro football, and one of the better corners in the league in Denzel Ward. And not much going on in this Vegas offense besides Ashton Jinty and Brock Bowers. I think Cleveland, they'll go out there, the couple turnovers in this game, get a few sacks on Geno, where he's having a bad year, turning the football over, holding on to it too much, and taking his sacks. And this could be a grinded out type ball game. And like I said, Myles Garrett, he's going to create havoc in this one. Number 4, the Detroit Lions. So regardless if it's Jackson Dart in the starting lineup or Jameis Winston, I think Detroit, after last week's embarrassing performance on offense, their defense went out there last week, held Philly down to 16 points, that they could hold down this Giant offense for the most part, where they could get to the quarterback led by Aiden Hutchinson. Even though the secondary's banged up, their coverage corners have been pretty solid for the majority of the season. And also as well, this New York Giant team don't have a real viable number 1 option in their offense, especially with Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo out for the season. So with all those factors, I think Detroit goes out there and takes care of business this week. Number 5, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, one of the better defenses in the league. Obviously, trading for Micah Parsons in training camp helped them in a big way to get one of the better pass rushers in the league. And this week in a matchup versus the Minnesota Vikings coming in, where obviously they're an indoor team, and also as well, J.J. McCarthy's forcing the football too much, and he's been a pick machine over the last couple weeks here. I think Green Bay, over the last couple weeks, the good work they're doing defensively, and now the young quarterback McCarthy coming in, they're going to have a good one in this one. Number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. I know this week, tough matchup and possibly the best offense they're versing this season at the Dallas Cowboys is this Philadelphia Eagle team, where in week 1, a couple drop balls from CeeDee Lamb possibly cost the Cowboys the game in that one. But right now, adding Jalen Phillips at the NFL trade deadline and Michael Carter cover corners in the league were big acquisitions for this Philadelphia Eagle team, and getting Brandon Graham out of retirement. But like I said, Dallas offensively, one of the best offensive teams in the league, scoring 28 points per game. Got Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, Ferguson, Javonte Williams. But like I said, Philadelphia, so far with these new trade acquisitions and guys coming back, their defense has been lights out. So this week, even at a high-powered Cowboy offense, I still have them as a top 6 option. Number 7, the San Francisco 49ers. This week, a good matchup. Carolina Panthers coming in. I know they got Rico Dotto, Titor McMillan, 2 good playmakers for this Panther team this season. And Bryce Young's definitely improved with a big game last week as well, leading the comeback at the Atlanta Falcons is not even 100%. And also we know Nick Bosa, Fred Warner are obviously out for the season for this 49er team. But this week they're in a good spot. Monday Night Football, extra day of rest. Last week they dominated that game in Arizona. And I think this week versus Carolina, where their offensive line isn't all that great, I think San Francisco creates some pressure and turnovers in this one. Number 8, the Buffalo Bills. So this Bills defense hasn't been good a majority of the season, but this week is a streaming option. I think their top 8 option is Buffalo going into Houston. Davis Mills once again is going to start. The running game with Woody Marks, Nick Chubb hasn't been great all season. And pretty much on the outside, it's just been Nico Collins all season long, even though Jaden Higgins has been starting to get things going a little bit the last few weeks. And they do got Dalton Schultz in the middle of the field. He could go out there and make plays. But like I said, Buffalo coming off a big game last week. And if they could get off to a roaring start, scoring the football, they can make this Texan offense one-dimensional. And that's where Davis Mills could get in trouble in this one. Number 9, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Steelers last week, They put on a great defensive performance with touchdowns in that ball game versus Cincinnati Bengals. And this week they go to Chicago, where Caleb Williams holds on to the football way too long. He takes a lot of big hits himself, as Caleb Williams. And also as well, if it's windy there, Caleb Williams, most times than not, he's inaccurate to begin with. So with all those factors, even if Jalen Ramsey doesn't give it a go in this game, I think Pittsburgh could go out there and be a solid option for owners this week. Number 10, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs had a tough loss last week, 22-19 versus Denver Broncos in a game they needed in the division. And now with their back against the wall and Indianapolis coming in, one of the top teams in the AFC, obviously, I still think it could be a long day for Daniel Jones. The last couple weeks, teams are starting to figure out Daniel Jones once again a little bit after he adjusted his mechanics. And obviously he's been running this Indianapolis offensive system very well the first 10, 11 weeks of the season. So this week, I think Kansas City back against the wall. Indianapolis coming in, they could get pressure on Jones. And like I said, the last couple of weeks, he's starting to turn the football over a little bit more as well. But the key is to stop, obviously, Jonathan Taylor and try to make him one-dimensional. Number 11, the Chicago Bears, Aaron Rodgers, 50-50 chance, I would say, he plays in this game with the left wrist injury. We saw him last week leave the game and not return with the injury was Aaron Rodgers. But even if he does give it a go, like I said, the weather's probably not going to be good climbing over there in this week's ball game, even though we know Rodgers and the Steelers team as a whole is used to cold weather, especially in November, December. But like I said, Chicago, they get to the quarterback, they create turnovers. I know they give up points, but more weeks than not, they're going to get 4 or 5 sacks. Is this bad defense? They're going to get 1 or 2 turnovers and possibly at times find the end zone. So this week, this could be an old smash mouth type of Soldier Field type of game between these two teams. And the 12th and final defense I'm ranking is the Vegas Raiders. I know this defense, one of the worst defenses in the league. We saw Dallas go in there in last week's game and put up 33 points. But we also saw a couple weeks ago, they went into Denver and held that offense down to 10 points, even though I don't think that Bronco offense is a juggernaut, but still, it's a way better offense, in my opinion, than Cleveland. So right now, the reports are Shador's going to start if Dylan Gabriel can't clear concussion protocol. And if he does clear it, Kevin's going to play Dylan Gabriel. But either way, it's a rookie quarterback in there. They don't have a lot of weapons. Jerry Jeudy, it's been a down year for him. Isaiah Bond, Cedric Tillman, the receivers for this Brown team. And pretty much Harold Fannin is the only reliable playmaker in the offense in the receiving game this season for Cleveland. Even David Njoku has been inconsistent. And also Quinshon Judkins, the last few games, he really hasn't done much for this Brown team. So with all those factors, and even though, like I said, this Raider defense isn't good, we've seen some flashes. And also they still got one of the better pass rushers, obviously, in Max Crosby, where it could be a long day for Sanders or Gabriel, whoever plays in this one. So that's the top 12 defense DST units I'm ranking for week 12 of the fantasy football season.